Hi everyone, thank you for coming back. I hope you enjoyed your break and you're ready to hear from Roslyn Mould, our newest board member at Humanists International. Woo! Thank you, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for staying and coming for my presentation. The Humanist Association of Ghana is a quite new group, and I'd like to thank Humanists International for giving us this opportunity to talk about our work and our success and our achievements today. This is just a brief video about the history of Ghana, for those who don't know Ghana. Can we pause it?
Yeah. You can
Just pause it.
you just press space.
Okay.
Pause it.
All right. Ghana is a West African country on the coast around this region in Africa. The first country to have gained independence in 1957 from the British, even though many foreign countries were the first to arrive, the Portuguese, the Dutch. And so our country is very diverse in terms of our history and the first settlers from Europe. We are also known for the slave trade, also because most of the slave ships from Africa came from our side of the region to the Americas and the Caribbean and beyond. So most African Americans actually can find their roots from Ghana, or what was formerly called the Gold Coast by the British. It was called the Gold Coast because it was literally a coast of gold. And we get like a map. The yellow stands for our mineral resources, bauxite, diamond, gold, anything, manganese, we have it. It's one of the richest African countries and very diverse in terms of its people. We are made up of over 40 tribes with 40 distinct languages. Naturally, most of Ghanaians are bilingual or multilingual. Myself, I speak 3 of the 40-something languages, which is never enough. and our official language is English since independence. Our founder, or I'll say our fight for independence were by 6 people, led by Pan-Africanist, author, and African humanist and advocate, Dr. Osajefo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He was a champion for our freedom from the British, from colonial rule, and for our independence. We are the first African state to have gained independence, so many African countries looked up to us to gain that. I wanted to first show a positive side of Ghana before everything else. So I'll just briefly, let's just play this. Okay. So this is where we are located. We have beautiful beaches, very big on tourism. Our chieftaincy is very popular. This is the biggest, sorry, this is going very fast. Okay, I'll start again. The Ashanti chief is the biggest monarch in the Ashanti region and richest as well. He's been acknowledged even by the Queen of England for his influence. We celebrate our culture, and all tribes have their own cultures, religions, and diverse languages. We are huge in tourism. We have huge forests, agriculture. That's for the green in our flag. Our various chiefs, these are from the northern part of Ghana, which are mainly Islamic, Muslim, Arabic influenced. Oops. Yeah. Sorry. I think I wanted to show you. This is the biggest castle, slave castle in Ghana. It's called the Elmina Castle, built by the Portuguese. So now we become very modern and developed in terms of tourism and everything, and how we also invest in businesses with foreigners and so on. So basically that's, okay, so back to my, sorry, lost. I don't want to press it. Back to my presentation, okay. So these are the topics I'll be covering today. I don't know if you had time to see it. So I've given a brief idea of what Ghana is. So the introduction of humanism, the first Ghanaian to ever start something like that was called Hope Teria. He was known in the 80s for starting a group called the Rational Center. Unfortunately, it did not pick up. Ghana itself has been democratic since independence, and we've never had a civil war, any war of any kind. We have, however, had unfortunate coup d'etats whenever, the people at the time are not happy with what happened. The last coup d'etat was by Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings in '79, and throughout the 80s till the 90s, he was in power. And he was a military person, and so with his agenda of trying to fight corruption and bring equality with the economic gap that was happening at the time, he rather became, I wouldn't say a dictator, but he became very authoritarian, and in his mission as a military person, bringing discipline and all that. So questioning and freedom of speech was put on hold. People were not allowed to question. If you question anything, people went missing, people were killed, so it was a time from the 80s up until the 90s where people felt they could not question anything. A lot of cultural influences too have come, especially from childhood. Most tribes ascribe being the good Ghanaian child is the quiet one, the one who just obeys and listens and does not question. And so a lot of Ghanaians have come from that. The Humanist Association of Ghana was a group of people who decided that as individuals, that they were going to think outside of the box, basically. It happened on social media in 2012. Social media was a big thing among the youth, and people were coming out about their atheism, online. And they started to identify each other online and decided to meet in person for the first time to see for themselves that these people do exist. They are not some virtual names or robots online. And so this was the first meeting they had, and they called themselves Free Thoughts Ghana. There is Graham Knight, a member of Humanists UK, actually, who had been living in Ghana for about 9 years. And he was invited the year before by Nigerian Humanists for a conference. But he came and found out a lot of Ghanaians were vocal online and helped coordinate them to come together. So this was the first group of humanists and the beginning of what would become today Humanist Association of Ghana. My sister was one of them, and that's how I got to know about the group. And within the first 2 months of them starting, we joined. You can see the smiles on their faces. You would not, for people who would not understand what it means to meet somebody else who shares the same mind as yourself, it was very exciting. It was surreal. It was amazing to know that there are other people who are just like you, even though we come from completely different backgrounds, ex-Muslims, ex-Christian, even within the Christian sect, we're talking about ex-Jehovah's Witness, ex-Mormons, so many things, and everybody excitedly telling about their story. I read about Richard Dawkins' book, or Dan Barker, or, I just discovered it by chance, or I was already thinking like that, or various stories, and their challenges living without religion in Ghana, in a highly dogmatic, highly Christian country. Ghana's religious, how should I say, the statistics would show that Christianity takes up 60% of the religious space. And that is the highest majority, of course. And then followed by Islam, which takes about 20 to 25%, mostly dominant in the northern part of Ghana. We met in Accra, where most of us are based, and which is the capital right at the south, at the coast. And so we decided to continue meeting each other, sharing our stories, and it just started as an atheist thing, more than, the idea of being a humanist group or anything. However, Humanists International heard about us, that this amazing young group of people are meeting and entrusted us to organize the first ever West African Humanist Conference. And we got humanists from Nigeria, Liberia, Sierra Leone, coming to Accra, sharing their stories, and it was just too exciting, like within a space of 6-7 months. And that was when a lot of us, like myself, decided to come out to my family, my friends, and everybody else, and to be who I am today, basically. So the space serves it serves as a safe space for atheists and agnostics. This is very important because Ghana, especially with Christian entitlement, there are billboards, the media, you are surrounded literally by religion everywhere you go. Our taxis and local buses we call trotros are all endorsed with some religious regalia. At school, most of them are faith schools, especially government schools. I had to go to Catholic schools. Unless you are privileged enough to pay for British education in international schools, all the other schools are highly, highly religious, and apart from the tertiary institutions. But even then, that has become a threat because now our tertiary spaces, which are supposed to be places for reasonable conversation and finding yourself intellectually, has turned into, with Christians especially using that space as their freedom of religion to use even study places, study rooms as their prayer rooms. A group, because we have decided, to identify as atheists, the Humanist Association of Ghana became the only space we could actually question anything. Most of us have had to keep hiding and are still in the closet. Their families, their friends don't know anything about it. Some of them too have been negatively affected by it. They are even trying to question, or even their families finding out by mistake that they are non-religious, has caused them to be accused of witchcraft, disowned from home. They stop paying your school fees. And sometimes just a way to get you frustrated enough to come back to religion. And so we, as a group that exists, makes it okay for people to feel, I have these people behind me, I have this group of people that supports me, understand me, and so it makes them still stay religious and not have any reason to go back to believing or to go back to that community that they've always known their whole lives. It's also a safe space for marginalized groups and minorities, especially for the LGBT community. Most times they cannot be in any other space other than LGBT groups. And so it's also a space where they can be themselves and be with straight people. We are the only group of that sort in Ghana right now, where you can be with straight, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans people can sit together and have conversations about social issues, human rights, and humanism without feeling different or without feeling marginalized. HAG has put atheism and humanism on the map in a sense that we have continued to speak about our non-religion for places. I heard from another speaker that, in the Americans, you meet people and they say they have never met an atheist before. Imagine what we have to go through every time. You say you're an atheist, it's like you are either demonized or they think you're not moral or you do need Jesus. So we go through all these things and speaking openly, those of us who are privileged enough to, though, usually that's those of us who are financially independent from our families and friends, are able to speak about it. And through our works, we've been able to put humanism on the map. Most of these achievements are from a sense of democracy, in the sense that we always come together to plan on how we want the group to go, especially as a young group. But then also we have been the ones who always say that a lot of it will just come out of coincidence, or we just try and error kind of ways to see if that will work or not. Yes. So a lot of times, most of our members are below the ages of 35. I'm actually leaving that group of people. I'm going to be the 2% or so, and most of them are youth. So they always, to appeal to the youth, they have been haunted or traumatized by living religion or even religion itself, that they didn't want anything that looked religion. We even have people that did not want to call themselves atheists or label themselves. They've labeled themselves enough and that didn't work. So now they are non-religious. It's not appealing to them to even label themselves or be part of another group of people. It's like going back to another religion. So we've tried to always make it youthful, exciting, but at the same time educative and inclusive for everybody. Yeah, we have regular monthly meetings at public places, especially for security's sake. Unfortunately, most places that we were meeting at was not good enough for the people there, because when they hear our conversations about God, or they were not too happy about it. Another thing too was our numbers were growing, and so they didn't like the idea that we just there to take up most of the space and not buy enough food or drinks or whatever. But eventually, we had a member, an Australian member, who owned a hotel, and so, as you can see in this picture here, she gave us her conference room. We had all the facilities we need and our safe space to be ourselves and all that. You can also see that some of our members are not necessarily Ghanaian, because we made the group inclusive of, as long as you identify as humanist, you're non-religious, and you're a resident in Ghana or you're a Ghanaian resident outside, you can be a part of the group. So we had some of our meetings with people passing through. A lot of people come for our free thought meetings and just to have conversations. It also allows religious people who are curious to come and sit down, either try to debate with us on why we are atheists or to join us in our conversations that we have in common, like causes that we have in common. So some of our meetings initially was about what's your story about how you became atheist, and how we can share ideas and books or information about how we became non-religious. But then it also evolved to become, we take a topic and then everybody talks about it, especially the questions we've never been allowed to ask. Euthanasia, sex, politics, name them. This was a talk about food security, anything at all that our society does not encourage us to talk about. That is the space we get to talk about all those things. We also got to form this sense of community, because for most people, we had been in our churches and mosques and stuff, and we had left all that behind. Now we don't have a lot of friends. They don't want to talk to you because you're non-religious. And so our sense of community we formed by going on trips out of the city and bonding, and a lot of it helped. That even, that's how Becca, she's American, and met her partner, and they've been married. They had the first humanist marriage, which was put together, officiated by Dr. Leo Igwe. And yeah, our group gave us that opportunity. Also, people get to share the kind of work they do. So you know that if you have your own business, you have people that are going to support that business. Or if you're doing any work and you need any advice or something like that, you always have this. It's just a WhatsApp group message away or something like that, and we can always stay together. So we had a lot of these getaways and stuff. Some of even the foreigners or Ghanaians living abroad will go. When they go back home, they come back just to have that sense of community with us again. This was actually a funny thing. There was an art festival, and as humanists, of course, we celebrate art, but also to show that we are there. And it was just a joke to stand in front of the Bible house on the street to take a picture of that. And the next year we were wearing Humanist Association of Ghana shirts. So like Bob and Elizabeth were talking about branding. Sometimes it's just, you might be scared to go alone wearing something that says, I'm an atheist. But then as a group, I was wearing Proud Atheists at that time, but as a group we could go together and we are all wearing secular reason, not circular reasoning, or free thoughts, things like that, or good without God. And then people are like, or in reason we trust, and like, who are these people? And some will come up to us and ask us, and then we get to spread the idea of humanism and non-religion in the country. Also, the group supports, a member passed away, and then another member's daughter passed away. He knows that even though the funeral was a religious funeral in a church. We were there in our numbers to come and help grieve and pay respects to the family and the bereaved. Also, there was a wedding ceremony, and we had humanists come in their numbers. It was a humanist ceremony as well, the second humanist marriage, and so we had a lot of people, and Christian Hayden from Philadelphia was also there to support. Yes, this is when we organized our first conference. Very excited to meet other West African humanists, and this was in 2014 when we organized the second West African Humanist Conference and learned so much about what it means to even start the group and what are we even going to do as a course. And it was at these conferences that we decided that since we identify with the Amsterdam Declaration, to choose courses that affiliate or relate to what the Amsterdam Declaration comes from. In Ghana, especially in Africa, there are hundreds and thousands of NGOs. But what makes us special, what makes us unique, what makes us different, not just because of our atheism, but also because we care about the things that religious people might not care about. And so issues like the LGBT rights, women's rights, in terms of women's rights, culturally we have issues like the witchcraft accusations, especially in the northern part. In the northern part, they are banished or lynched or killed. But in the southern part, people might, just stop taking care of their mothers or their grandmothers because a pastor said, if you dream about her, then that's what is causing your grief, or your business is failing because of your mother or your grandmother and things like that. So they are stigmatized somewhere in the north, in the southern parts. Other issues like female genital mutilation, mostly dominant in the north, trochasy system, widowhood rights. Widowhood rights, there are certain tribes that if your husband dies, they wash the corpse and you are forced to drink the water used to wash the corpse, and other rituals like that. And women that are refused are either accused of witchcraft or they're killed. And so these are some of the things. A trochasy system is if your family member commits does something unethical, commits adultery or something like, or owes somebody money, they give out a virgin girl from the family as a slave to the trochasy shrine. And it's still happening till today. Even Christian Amanpour made a whole documentary about that years ago. So these are some of the things that we did. Yes, so we've been working to expand the humanist group. We've had hundreds of people pass through our free thoughts meetings. However, for registered members who are atheists and actually identify or subscribe to the humanism as a philosophy, we are about 60 people. So we knew that most of these courses that we want, we are passionate about, but we can't do it on our own. We are a super minority. And so the idea was to expand and ally with other groups that are also that also understand us, or that also agree with what we're trying to do, the courses that we want to, and campaigns that we want to do. Most of our members are actually people that like to seek knowledge. And so whenever there are events, and Accra is a hub for so many, there are things going on all the time. And so most of our members might attend events on art, music, activism, films, on certain courses and things like that. And so we use those connections that we make, the networking that we make, to make friends with the religious people in these groups. And then that's how we became allies to them, attend their meetings, and so on. So these are some of the groups that we've affiliated with. There was a women's march, the first women's march when Trump came into power in Washington. We had the Accra Satellite March. It was actually, that one was organized by 2 American women, but HAG members, most of us standing around this area, attended that event. And we got to know more about those who were part of it and why they were part of it. Almost everybody there got to talk about why they were there and why they were there to support the March on Washington. We also had the March for Science the same year, organized at the hotel that we usually have our meetings, Ifya Beach Hotel. We got to meet so many environmental groups there and the work that they are doing in their fields. We also had the first feminist march. It was the first time that we wanted to take our space back. at our favorite art festival, where we were standing in front of the Bible House previously. So that years later, we joined forces with other feminist groups and took our space as African feminists, Ghanaian feminists, and as feminists in general. And then in 2018, there was an American woman that was attending our meetings and was like, what are we doing for 2018 Women's March, to support the March on Washington? And, well, I was the only one at the time that had attended the previous march. That's her here, Ashley. So we joined forces with 2 other ladies, and the 4 of us organized this march in front of the American Embassy in Accra. Yes, initially we had people coming from the embassy to ask, what are you doing? What are you doing here? But Ashley, being the humanist that she is, stood up and didn't want to give out our personal details. They wanted our names, I don't know, passport pictures. I don't know, we were taking pictures of us or something like that for the organizers. But she stood up and said, I'm American and I'm the organizer for this, so, give us a space, we need to talk. And I think some of them, there was one person I noticed was hanging around, not really being part of it, and later walked back into the embassy. Realized that what we're talking about wasn't necessarily against the US. No, we are there to support the March on Washington, but also discuss our issues as women in Ghana and around the world. So we joined up with one of the environmental groups we met at March for Science. There was one that was called Hipsters of Nature. And they were organizing a beach cleanup, and we just showed up there. And they were like, who are these? Like, out of the volunteers that they were able to get, maybe they were like 10, and we were like 15. And they're like, who are these people? We are atheists. We are here to help. Let's clean. Let's get dirty. And they were like, you are atheists? Like, wow. It was good to see that their idea of an atheist being this monster, immoral, now they could see we were there to help. We were able to pick up about 50 of these bags. Most of it, I don't know, for some reason, there were a lot of car tires. And so that was donated to schools to use as flower pots or something like that. And then chunks of coconut husks and stuff, I think, were recycled for other things. And then the plastics, we tried to dispose of them properly in a different area. We also teamed up with another group called Environment 360, and she's a leader for that one. And they had this program called Float Your Boat, where basically you spend about $100 or $200 to participate as a group, team, neighbors, company, whatever. And the money is put into educating the youth about sanitation, recycling, and so on. And basically you're supposed to make a boat out of plastic bottles and hag on the race. So it put us on the map because she had no idea about who humanists are at all. But then we started working together, and she wants to partner with us. We help to share whatever work she's doing and her achievements as well. And she also supports all the work that we do till now. There's a Young Feminist Collective meeting, which is organized by the African Women's Development Fund. This has been an NGO that's been in Ghana for over a decade. But then some of their new employees who are religious identify as feminists and decided to start our own space for women feminists. And yes, so we also started attending their meetings. And within a year or two, they were organizing International Women's Day, and they invited us to speak on, their topic was faith, feminisms, and fundamentalisms. And this was the first time that atheists were even invited for anything at all. Like, usually if there's something on faith, they talk about all the other faiths, but not non-faith. So it was good that, I was invited there to speak on behalf of the Humanist Association of Ghana. And at the time, I was president of that. And here we have an Islamic feminist, and the first ever theologian lady, and an evangelical woman feminist. And the topics were very, very interesting, especially when it came to LGBT rights. Then the evangelists left that conversation, and as well as the Islamic lady. But the theologian lady, though a Christian, was the only one supporting me on that. And they didn't allow me to talk about trans stuff. But yes, we had a good conversation about that and patriarchy and so on. And then from the Women's March, the second Women's March I helped to organize, we met a very outspoken group of feminists called Pepper Them Ministries. They come up with a very interesting way of kind of poking patriarchy in the eye in Ghana. You know, pepper them, puts pepper in the eye, kind of thing. But then they have a very good strategy of also what they call flipping the script. So all the cultural norms or the cultural idea of what it is to be a woman, they flip the script and make it about a man. And the outrage on social media has caused them to become very, very famous. So they had a radio program, time on radio, and they invited me to speak on feminism and faith as well. And most of the questions I was getting then was about, so you are 80, so where did you come from? Or how are you going to get married? Or what do you mean by, how do you share your work with your spouse or your partner, and questions like that. And it might seem like it's nothing much, but in a country like mine, it's a very, very deep question. People cannot comprehend what it means to be equal. The LGBT community as well, we've supported in so many ways. In fact, for LGBT activism, we have been the biggest allies, and the allies have been doing the most work long before the LGBT itself decided to come out and do stuff. There have been so many NGOs, of course, but most of them don't have the privilege to come out in public for fear of being lynched or, discriminated, or you could lose your job, your family finds out you're gay, It's very, very different in my country. It's not safe at all. And over time, HAG has become the biggest allies right now. If they need anyone to go on radio tomorrow and the radio calls them, we go. And stand for them. Listen, first of all, we had to do a lot of research on what they wanted to talk about and what they wanted to stand for. So unlike most LGBT groups around the world, the groups in Ghana are not interested in the marriage aspect for now, which is also a good thing, because the fear for most people is if we give them rights, now they're going to ask for marriage. So let's not even go there. But there was a report, a Human Rights Watch report done by lawyers and like a legal team from South Africa. And they launched a human rights report on the violence and discrimination in the LGBT community in Ghana. And that day it was launched, they called on Agomo, who was then organizing secretary, to go on TV. There was a lawyer who called in, a very prominent lawyer, calls himself a human rights lawyer, and says that gay rights is not a human right. He attends the UN conferences as well, and there's nothing like gay rights is a human right. It's actually one of our biggest, forces, or biggest problems with trying to, win rights. The laws we have in Ghana against LGBT is from the British during colonial rule. And even though the British have changed their laws, Ghana, for some reason, they start to say it's an African, it was brought from the West, blah, blah, blah. And the law states about a natural carnal knowledge. And this is not necessarily stating for homosexual people, but then the law has been used against lesbians, gay, everyone who is in that community, or looks like the stereotype, that they think if you look gay or something like that, then you are attacked. And the police don't do anything about it. There's nowhere to go to. People blackmail people in the community and stuff like that. And so HAG has become the one that has been supporting them. If you can appeal, the idea was if you can appeal to the masses, you're Christian, you're a Muslim, you say you're about peace and love, why would you support violence against people? So if you're talking about violence, then maybe people will start to sympathize and empathize with the community. And that was going great until we had lawyer Fo Amwane and his crew. Speaker of Parliament as well also does a lot of work. He's a Speaker of Parliament now, and he's the one pushing for the law to be made explicit that if you're lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, plus, you should be put in jail just for being gay, not even without any evidence of an anal sex or intimacy with someone of the same gender. There was also a time where our current president was interviewed on Al Jazeera News about his take or his position on the LGBT situation. And he was very diplomatic about it. He said that when he was saying, when he studied in the UK, I believe it was Oxford University, and it was at a time where it was not, gay people don't have rights. But then he was also there when he started practicing as a lawyer in the UK, where gay rights became a thing. And so he's just waiting for the time where activists will take it up, and if Ghanaians really want it, then it will happen. Now, this happened on both ways. The LGBT community was actually excited that he didn't say, no, we don't want that because the president has done that before. But those who are against, the homophobes and homophobic community in Ghana were not outraged and wanted it to, tried to justify that he didn't say yes and he didn't say no. So, they had it. So they called on the LGBT community, and they called me to support them on radio to discuss it immediately, the next day after the president's interview. We have a small planetarium. This is our planetarium. I've been to the Chicago Planetarium, and it's definitely very different. But this is... So we support this because in Africa, there are only two. There's one in South Africa, and Ghana is the only one that has another one. I think the South African one is probably bigger than this. But yeah, it was founded by Dr. Ashon and his wife, and they use their own savings to do this. And so he tries to get donations and other things, and we try to draw awareness or raise awareness about this, especially for people who are not aware. The whole idea, a lot of, like I said, people ask, where do you come from? And little is known about the universe because it's not in the Bible, and most of the time that's the only thing they are reading. So it's a way for people to get to be educated about the cosmos and stuff like that. So we organized a book mastery. Helen List, our Australian member, came up with an idea to have a more environmental Christmas tree. Plastic. Well, we don't have, what's the name of those trees? Pine trees, don't grow. So we buy plastic trees. And because it's a very Christian country, it's not a Christian country, but it's a lot of Christians there. So Christmas is a very big time to celebrate. And there are so many plastic trees being sold around Christmas time. And most of this just gets discarded and ends up in our oceans and stuff like that. So she decided to start what we call a book mastery, also in support of our book drive. We decided that a lot of times we realized most of our members just out of reading a book became critical thinkers, became free thinkers, became atheists eventually. And so maybe for especially a lot of kids that don't have access to these books, it might take just a book or two, and not necessarily an atheist book, but like the more you educate them, they're probably going. So we decided to start a book drive to support these schools. And some of us go out and buy the books. Others raise their awareness and get their families, friends, and other groups to support it. But Helen was one of the biggest contributors because for 2 years she did this. During Christmas, people donate books, and then she put it up as like in the shape of a Christmas tree. And after the Christmas season, donated to Humanist Association of Ghana. We categorize them according to the age and stuff like that, and donate it to the schools. Currently, we support the Kotobabi cluster of schools. These are some of the books we bought: science, math, whatever, dinosaurs, about evolution and things like that, literature, stuff like that for children. And we are raising more awareness about that for people to donate books, ideas, and stuff like that. We found the Kotobabi cluster of schools. This is a government state-funded school in the city. And it's made up of 5 schools for primary to junior high school kids, which are up to from 5 to 16 years old. There was no library. We thought we were just going to add to their library. There was not even a library in any of these schools. So we became the first people to give them a library. And so what we did is they didn't even want a room. We had to get a box and put the books in it. And then what they'll do is this week, this school gets these books, and then they'll pass it on to the next school, and it goes through the cluster of schools. One of our members also donated her laptop when she was leaving, a Canadian. And so, we gave that out to let them know that, we have their support. This was their IT room, and they did not have anyone. They are all computers that were not working. Our group had members who were into IT and helped to fix them. well. Oh, shit. Okay, so we have the podcast that we've been doing for the last 4 years, 5 years or so. The podcast started as a way to kind of like have our group meetings, since people are afraid to meet with atheists, just to put that out there. It also created a time for us to have the discussions that people don't think we have, because there's this huge pop culture among the youth, very small space for intellectual conversations among the youth. Also, because we are a volunteer organization, we try to find the cheapest means as possible. So put it on free on social media, YouTube, SoundCloud, and stuff like that. It's also a sense of anonymity, so that our members who are not open to their family and friends can still have those conversations without, mentioning the name. You can give funny names like that. And also to attract people to listen to the podcast, we used to give them funny names so that people would Google it and then try to find, like, no back door, just to mock the way people, first of all, see LGBT stuff as about men sleeping with men or anal sex. But then the conversation was not even about that. So if you click on that, you're going to find out that there was news that we're talking about when the U.S. was trying to, there was an issue about somebody accused of terrorism, and they were trying to hack into his iPhone or something like that. And so we said that, iPhone should not allow the U.S. government to do that. And so it was nothing to do with that, but then it was also a way to get people to think about it. So here we were invited by Blogging Ghana to come and talk about our podcast. We had several episodes. There was an episode I did at the first GA in Malta, and then we've had one on street epistemology. We did at a beach music festival. And we've also teamed up with Accra We Day. It was a very pop culture thing, but then they invited us to collaborate and put us on a map about that. At the African Humanist Days in Kenya, we also took part in that. So our recent campaign we've been doing is feminist videos. So we've teamed up with Pepper Dem Ministries, Young Feminist Collective, and the Humanist Association of Ghana to come up with 21 questions you should ask a feminist, And apart from the humanists, the rest are all religious people. But then you should check it out on YouTube and stuff like that. They get to talk about the questions that people want to ask, because there's this stereotype about what a feminist is. About witchcraft accusation, I'm sorry, I have to run through quite fast. But witchcraft accusation in West Africa, there was an American group called the Humanist Service Corps that came to assist victims of witchcraft accusations in the north. Like I said, witchcraft is very prominent in the northern part of Ghana. Women were 99% of the victims accused of witchcraft, and it ranges from anything. There is no rain, it's a woman's fault. There is too much rain, it's a woman's fault. No harvest, famine, disease, someone died, I broke my ankle. So, women are just accused of witchcraft for. And Dr. Liogo is somebody who did his PhD thesis on the witchcraft accusation issue in the northern part of Ghana. So we learned a lot from him, but we also teamed up with HSC, providing two of our members, that is Michael Sesbe and my sister, Monica Mould, are on the board of the HSC, and they teamed up with a local women's rights organization, two of them actually, in the north, to work with these witch camps. So those who are lucky enough to escape lynching or something, or being killed, flee to these witch camps. And it's a very poor environment. There are no schools, no drinking water, you have to walk for miles. And these are sometimes 80-year-old women and stuff like that. We used to get 5 volunteers each year from HSC from the States, and they would come and live in the communities with these alleged witches. Learn the language. It's amazing. I've heard Americans learn Dagbanli in 3 months, and it's amazing. I don't understand the language. It's very difficult. But they were able to learn it and mix with the community, understand the issues, listen to the stories of these women, work with the communities, these people that accuse them of witchcraft, and donate money into putting ways and strategies for them to be reintegrated into society. And very successful. The humanist groups were the first to ever reintegrate women who have been banished. Some of them banished for 20, 30 years, had no idea they will ever see home again. Are home as we speak now, thanks to Humanist Service Corps and the Humanist Association of Ghana. Yeah, so Connor Robinson is the founder, and we had one of our members who actually lived there every year. Different volunteers come every year, but she stayed with them and became co-coordinator of the group for the last few years. And these are from Texas, I don't know, Warren is from, I don't know, different parts of the state, basically. And yes, they lived with the people in the communities, met with the local chiefs. Here is Christian here with a lady who was able to, eventually, they were able to take her home. So just days before she was going home, you know, she got to take a picture with him before she would probably never see him again. Also, sometimes the strategies of them taking them back home is they are accused of witchcraft, and these accusations are, how do you call it, confirmed by fetish priests, most likely to say you are a witch. And Leo Igwe told us some of them, you know, they put a small, tiny stool, you sit on it, if they push you and you fall, you are a witch. Or they slaughter a chicken, the chicken flaps around, if it lands on the wrong side, you are a witch. And so we have to put money into buying chickens to be slaughtered and then hope they fall on the right side so that you can go back home. And it's things like this that they had to work with. They also had a no footprints policy, so it wasn't about us, it wasn't about them saying, we are humanists and we are here to help you, but it was there to support the women's rights group, to forward the cause itself, and to say that, to have an impact without actually just proselytizing humanism like the evangelicals would do. Yeah. So these are some of the work. They came up with a medical database for all the women in the camps that did not have it. And they also supported some of the youth with sewing machines, blah, blah, blah. Social media was one of the biggest tools. First of all, like I said, we started from Twitter, and we've used social media because it's cheaper, it gives us anonymity, it gives us visibility. Liam was talking about visibility and being found. If anybody wanted to know about our work or how they can champion our work, not necessarily our work, but to be directed to who are the right, legitimate NGOs. There are NGOs receiving millions of dollars and pounds and euros, but are doing nothing at all. You know, I don't know, it's going into fancy hotels and just, I don't know, big cars and stuff like that, rather than the work. They are trying, but it's not enough. So we try to use less income, but then to get enough results so that it reaches the right groups that are doing work. Yeah, so these are some of our upcoming projects if you want to. We are going to have the first Free Thought Festival by August, and we are planning to let some of these children from Kotobabi School visit the Accra Planetarium and continue with the LGBTQ activism. The Hacktivist podcast is still on if you want to listen to the issues that we talk about and stuff like that. You can, and promoting HSC's work on the witchcraft accusation. Yeah, I'll contact him.